I was sent to kill the Vampire King, then he and his brothers marked me as theirs. I was 8 years old the first time I saw a vampire. My mother thought I was sleeping. She'd tucked me into my narrow bed in the safe house, brushed hair from my forehead, and whispered the same promise she always did. Hunters don't run, Shannon. We end the monsters so no one else has to be afraid. The walls in that place were too thin for promises. I heard the front door crash open. I heard the wet sound of someone choking on their own blood. I crawled to the crack under my bedroom door and watched a shadow move through the light from the hall, too smooth, too quiet. My mother had a knife in her hand and a prayer on her lips. She lunged. He didn't even look like a monster at first. Pale, beautiful, eyes like spilled ink. His hand blurred. Her knife clattered to the floor. Hunters don't run, she gasped as he lifted her by the throat. I ran. Her scream followed me into the night, followed me into the arms of the Order, followed me into the training halls where they forged broken children into weapons. They told me his name. Vincent. The Vampire King. The monster I was born to kill. 15 years later, the Order finally pointed me at him and pulled the trigger. You will infiltrate his court, the High Inquisitor said, voice sharp as the blade he slid across the table to me. He is hosting a summit in the Blackthorne Citadel, inviting human dignitaries and minor covens. He wants a treaty. He spat the last word like poison. I rolled the knife between my fingers. The steel hummed with the faint thrum of runes, a hunter's toy dressed up as an assassin's weapon. And you want me to pretend I'm peace-loving enough to be in the delegation? I asked. His jaw flexed. You'll go as the bodyguard for our envoy. At some point during the 7-day summit, you'll get close to Vincent. Close enough to use that blade. And when I kill him, I said, you'll finally let me off your leash? For a heartbeat, I thought he might tell me the truth, that I would never be free. That the Order didn't release their instruments, they just sharpened them until they broke. Instead he smiled, thin and cold. Serve your purpose, Hunter. The rest will follow. The mountains rose black and jagged around Blackthorne Valley, their peaks hooked like claws into a starless sky. The citadel itself was carved into the side of the tallest, an obsidian fortress whose spires glowed faintly with ward light, as much a warning as a welcome. Our convoy of armored SUVs wound up the narrow road, tires crunching over frosted gravel. The driver's knuckles were white on the wheel. In the back seat, across from me, our envoy dabbed sweat from his upper lip with a handkerchief. You're sure they have no intention of feeding on us? He asked for the third time. If they did, I said, checking my weapons for the fifth, we'd already be dead. Vampires don't wait when they're hungry. He flinched. You don't have to sound so cheerful. That was the thing about fear, once you drowned in it as a child, it never quite had the same teeth. My own nerves were wired to something else entirely. To the hum of the runic blade strapped along my spine. To the pulse at my throat where the Order's binding tattoo glowed faintly under my skin. To the name that had been a ghost in my skull for 15 years. Vincent. We passed under a black iron archway. Magic tugged over the car like a cold hand. Wards. Old. Powerful. The SUV shuddered as though it had driven through a waterfall of static. My inner wards, inked in the Order's cramped tunnels, etched into bone and blood, flickered, then settled. Last chance to turn around, the driver muttered. If only. The citadel's courtyard opened before us, lit by braziers whose flames burned an unnatural blue. Vampires lined the stairs leading up to the massive doors. They didn't stand like guards. They lounged. Casual, predatory. Their eyes tracked us with feline curiosity. The High Inquisitor's voice echoed in my head. They're monsters, Shannon. Never forget what they are. The car stopped. I stepped out into air that smelled of pine, cold stone, and something metallic beneath, like electricity before a storm. 3 figures waited at the top of the stairs. I knew him before I knew him. The man in the center stood as still as a statue and yet somehow more alive than anyone I had ever seen. Tall. Broad-shouldered. Black hair swept back from a face that had been carved with ruthless patience, high cheekbones, and a hard jaw softened only by a mouth that looked like it had forgotten how to smile. His eyes flickered across the courtyard, and time dropped out from under me. They were not black, as I remembered from a doorway lit by a dying bulb. They were a dark, old gold. A predator's gaze with the weight of centuries behind it. Vincent. My heart lurched into a sprint. The man at his right was all edges and mockery, lean where Vincent was solid, with hair the color of dark copper pulled into a loose tie at the nape of his neck. His eyes were a brighter gold, burning with mischief and something more dangerous layered beneath. Devin. The third was broader than either, built like a soldier dragged out of some ancient battlefield. Shorter dark hair. Scar along one brow. His gaze moved less than the others, but when it did, it cut. Dorian. I'd studied them from a distance. Grainy surveillance photos. Dossiers on the Order's forbidden shelves. Seeing them now was like having those static images step off a page and wrap a hand around my throat. My envoy moved first, climbing the stairs and bowing with more enthusiasm than grace. Your Majesty, he said, voice shaking just slightly. On behalf of the human coalition, I thank you for. Vincent's gaze slid past him. And locked on me. The world narrowed to the space between us. For a second I was eight again, peering through a crack in a door, watching my mother dangle from a pale hand. Hunter, he said softly. The word wasn't loud, but it rippled through the assembled vampires like a thrown stone across water. Heads turned. Faint hisses. A few smiles, sharp and hungry. My hand twitched toward the knife at my back. Bodyguard, I corrected, voice steady. Shannon. I'm here to keep your guests alive, Your Majesty. Including my own. Devin laughed, sudden and bright. Hear that, brother? She's here to keep you from snacking at the table. Vincent, Dorian said, a warning rumble. His eyes were on me. Weighed. Measured. The wards flagged her coming through. I noticed, Vincent murmured. He descended the last few steps until we stood nearly eye to eye. He was taller, but not so much that I had to crane my neck. Close enough that I could see the darker ring around his irises, the faint shadow of stubble along his jaw, the way his gaze lingered just slightly on the pulse at my throat. Close enough to kill him. Just drive the blade up, between ribs, into the heart. The Order had told endless stories of attempts that failed on lesser vampires. On him, they swore, this knife would work. The runes had been crafted for his blood. My fingers flexed. Not yet. Not with an entire court watching. Vincent's nostrils flared. His pupils blew wide. The courtyard went silent as a grave. Devin straightened. Well, hell. What? I snapped. Dorian's jaw tightened. You smell that? I'm not sure I should answer that question in public, Devin drawled, but there was a new tension in his shoulders. Vincent's voice dropped an octave. What are they teaching hunters these days? I don't. He stepped closer. Too close. The world dropped away, leaving heat where his presence washed over me, cold where the night still hung at my back. I can smell the binding magic on you, he said quietly, too low for anyone but his brothers to hear. And beneath it, beneath the stench of the Order's ink, something else. His gaze locked onto mine. Your heartbeat, he whispered, sounds like mine. My chest clenched. Get out of my space, I said, taking a half step back. His mouth twitched, as if some nearly forgotten part of him remembered how to be amused. Very well, Hunter. For now. He stepped aside with a smooth sweep of his coat, gesturing toward the doors. Welcome to Blackthorne Citadel. May the summit be illuminating. The envoy exhaled in relief, mist puffing in the cold air, and hurried inside. The driver followed. I went last, feeling 3 sets of eyes between my shoulder blades like knives. Hunter, Vincent had called me. He wasn't wrong. But there was something else under my skin now. Something that reacted to the sound of his voice like it had been waiting years to hear it. The guest wing assigned to the human coalition was on the western side of the citadel, far from the thrum and whisper of the main court. My room was a narrow space with a heavy wooden door, stone walls, and a window that overlooked the valley. Luxurious by hunter standards. Spartan by royal vampire standards. The order's binding tattoo at the base of my throat itched. I stripped down to the sports bra and leggings I wore under my suit, then peeled off the thin silver chain they insisted I wear during missions. A charm against enthrallment. A leash that doubled as a listening spell. I dropped it into the porcelain basin and poured a vial of consecrated water over it. The metal hissed, then went still. The listening spell fried along with it. Screw you very much, I muttered to the High Inquisitor, wherever his watching eyes had been. Silence fell around me like a blanket. It didn't last. A knock sounded at my door. 3 sharp raps, deliberate, unhurried. The kind of knock that assumed it would be obeyed. My knife was in my hand before the echo faded. I cracked the door and found Devin leaning against the opposite wall, hands in the pockets of a black dress shirt unbuttoned just low enough to be distracting. His copper hair had escaped its tie and fell around his face in loose waves. "Hunter," he said, giving me a lazy once-over. His gaze flicked to the knife and his grin widened. Already naked and armed. Promising start. I stared. I'm not naked. Compared to the envoy's layers of wool and fierce sweat, I stand by my assessment. Did you come here for a reason, I asked, or just to harass the hired help? Vincent wants to see you. The runic blade warmed faintly in my grip, as if sensing the name. Now? Now. Devin's gaze sharpened. I suggest you don't keep him waiting. It makes him broody. I thought broody was his default setting. He laughed. True. It makes him murderously broody, then. I considered slamming the door in his face. Instead, I slid the knife into the sheath at the small of my back and stepped into the hall, closing the door behind me. Lead the way, Fong boy. He clucked his tongue. Insulting your host already. Do all hunters have a death wish, or is that just your charming quirk? Just trying to live up to my reputation. We walked in silence for a few paces. The citadel's corridors were a study in contrasts, ancient stone and dark wood, modern lighting hidden in carved sconces, tapestries woven with scenes I half recognized from vampire lore. Battles. Coronations. A woman with eyes like starlight standing between humans and monsters alike. Is that her? I asked before I could stop myself. The tapestry we passed showed her mid-gesture, hand raised, light spilling from her palm. The witch who forged the first blood treaties. Devin's eyebrows went up. You know our history? I know my enemy, I said. Enemy, he repeated, tasting the word. You might want to hold on to that certainty, Hunter. It won't last long here. Because your interior decorating is so impressive? He laughed again, that rolling, easy sound that was more dangerous than any hiss. Because your world is made of edges. Ours is made of shadows. Things blur here. We turned a corner into a narrower hall. The air cooled further, carrying a hint of old paper and colder stone. Where are we going? I asked. The library. For a midnight story time? For privacy, he said, and the humor faded around the edges of his voice. The court is still buzzing about you. We reached a set of double doors made from some dark, polished wood. Devin pushed one open and gestured me inside with a mock bow. I stepped into a vast chamber that smelled of leather, dust, and magic. Shelves rose 3 stories high, crammed with books. Rolling ladders. Tables scattered with open tomes and half-burned candles, though the light now came from orbs floating near the ceiling. Vincent stood at one of the tables, sleeves rolled up, hands braced on either side of an ancient map. Up close, the impression of stillness fractured. I could feel the contained energy in him, like a storm held in check by sheer will. Dorian leaned against a bookshelf nearby, arms crossed. His dark eyes flicked to me, then away, as if cataloging threat levels. "Leave us," Vincent said without looking up. Devin's mouth twisted. "Try not to kill each other. Or do, but do it quietly. I like my sleep." He slipped out, closing the door behind him. Silence settled. I stayed where I was, just inside the room, back to the door, weight balanced evenly between my feet. Knife within easy reach. Always one step from violence. That was how the Order trained us. Vincent finally looked up from the map. "Shannon." He said my name like he was testing it. Like it was a spell. "Your Majesty," I replied. "Vincent is fine," he said. "I reserve Your Majesty for when I'm being particularly insufferable." Is this one of those times? A flash of a real smile ghosted over his mouth. Brief. Devastating. Not yet. He straightened. "You are not what I expected." "What did you expect?" "Fangs. Claws. Horns." "I expected someone who knew how to hide what she is," he said. "Instead you walked into my courtyard radiating hunter magic like a beacon." "Not my choice," I said through my teeth. "Your wards are thorough." "Those are my wards," Dorian said quietly. "They did not unmask you. They simply stripped away some of what your order has done to you." A chill skated down my spine. "What they've done to me?" Vincent's gaze dipped to the base of my throat. "May I?" Every muscle in my body protested. He lifted his hands, palms up, fingers spread. No sudden movement. No hint of compulsion on the air. Just a question. I stepped closer. He reached out slowly, giving me every chance to step back. That was the problem. Monsters weren't supposed to ask. His fingers brushed the edge of the tattoo peeking above my sports bra. It flared, hot and cold at once, like a live coal pressed to ice. I sucked in a breath. "Don't." He hissed, jerking his hand back as if burned. The library lights flickered. "What did they do?" Dorian growled, pushing off the shelf. I swallowed, touching the mark myself. The skin felt normal. The sensation had sunk deeper, into bone. "Just your standard loyalty curse," I said lightly. "Break their rules, die horribly. Think about betraying them, die horribly. Disobey a direct order. Horribly," Vincent finished, voice flat. "It worked on a few early recruits," I added. Everyone else learned from the screaming. Anger moved through his features like cloud shadow across a field. "You bear that binding, and yet the wards let you in." "You invited us," I said. "Cross-World Summit, remember? Made a big show about peace. Peace, Dorian echoed, like a word he didn't entirely trust. Vincent's gaze found mine again. "I invited humans. I did not invite the Order's pet assassins." "What's the difference?" I shot back. His eyes darkened. "A human can choose what they become. My choices were taken from me a long time ago." We stared at each other. The air between us felt charged, thick with more than anger. Every breath brushed over something in me that hummed in answer to him. "You feel it," he said quietly. I crossed my arms over my chest. "What I feel is extremely irritated." That's one word for it. Devin's voice floated in from the door. I startled. I hadn't heard it open. You were told to leave, Dorian said, exasperation threading through his tone. I did leave. Then I got curious. Devin sauntered in, shutting the door behind him with a soft click. You're not the only ones who can smell it, you know. Smell what? I snapped. Devin tilted his head, studying me. The bond. Don't be ridiculous, I said. Humans don't bond with vampires. That's fairy tale crap the Order uses to scare rookies. Your order, Dorian said, is incompetent. Or willfully blind, Vincent added. Which is more dangerous? What bond? I demanded. Vincent moved away from the table, closing the distance between us again. He stopped when we were close enough that I could feel faint traces of his body heat. Closer than a corpse, further from human warmth. It was an odd in-between. Tell me the truth, Shannon, he said. What did they send you here to do? The tattoo at my throat flared. Not physically. It was more like an internal spike of pain lancing through my chest, warning me. Lie. Lie or die. Protect the envoy, I said evenly. The pain eased. Vincent's jaw ticked. Half-truth. Damage control, Devin murmured. Classic hunter technique. Say all the true parts and hope no one notices the missing ones. Did they send you to negotiate? Dorian asked. No. Did they send you to observe? Yes. Did they send you to spy? Vincent asked. The pain coiled, waiting. Observation is a form of intel gathering, I said. It was technically true. The binding settled. Vincent's gaze sharpened. Did they send you to kill me? The tattoo exploded inside my chest like a bomb. White-hot pain radiated down my spine, into my limbs, like my nerves had been set on fire. I staggered, grabbing the edge of the table. The room tilted. Shannon. Vincent's voice sounded oddly distant. Answer the question. My throat closed. The curse clawed at my heart, trying to stop it. I pressed my forehead to the cool wood, teeth bared. Why? The word tore itself out of me as blood pricked at my gums. Yes. The pain crested. Something snapped. It felt like a rope that had been choking me for years suddenly frayed. Not gone. Not yet. But loosened. Air rushed into my lungs. I choked on it. A hand closed over mine on the table. Large. Cool. Steady. Vincent. He was right there, eyes glowing with molten gold, fangs just barely lengthened behind parted lips. Devin had gone very still, his earlier levity stripped away. Dorian's hands flexed at his sides like he wanted to rip something, or someone, apart. What did you do? Devin asked Vincent quietly. Nothing, Vincent said. Her binding reacted to the conflict between his command and mine. His? I rasped. The Inquisitor who sent you, Vincent said. He didn't look away from me. The curse compels you to obey him. When I pressed, the magic tried to tear you in half. It weakened itself instead. I swallowed, throat raw. So what, you accidentally helped me? His mouth curled. Consider it a perk of honesty. I could have died. You didn't, Dorian said. Which speaks to your resilience. Or stubbornness, Devin added. I respect both. I sank into the nearest chair before my legs mutinied. The table swam in and out of focus. My heartbeat, which had been thundering like a war drum, slowly steadied. You're taking this well, I muttered. Would you prefer we panic? Devin asked. I could faint if it'd make you feel better. It would be entertaining, Dorian said. Despite everything, a choked laugh escaped me. Is this how you usually handle assassination attempts? Banter and mild medical attention? You haven't attempted anything yet, Vincent said. You've only admitted intent. There's a difference. For now, Dorian added warningly. I looked up at him. You think I'm still going to try? A hunter does what they're told, he said. It's how your order keeps you. Maybe I'm tired of being kept. The word surprised me as much as them. Silence settled again. Not quite hostile. Not quite comfortable. Tense. New. Vincent's gaze softened in a way I did not trust. Your mother was a hunter. It wasn't a question. It still felt like a blade slipped between ribs. I said. I'm sorry. I laughed bitterly. Are you apologizing for killing her? He blinked. I've killed many hunters, Shannon. I remember few of their faces. You remember mine. You were a child hiding behind a door, he said quietly. I told your mother to send you away before I came. She refused. Hunters don't run, she said. I know, I said. I was there. I didn't want to kill her. You did it anyway. Yes. No justification. No excuses. Just the word, heavy and flat. Why? The question burst out of me. 15 years trapped behind my teeth, suddenly free. Because she wouldn't stand down, he said. Because she'd already killed 3 of my people. Because the order sent her after me knowing she wouldn't return. They promised her glory. They sent her to die. My vision blurred. Rage, grief, something else. You expect me to believe you're the victim in this? No, his eyes darkened. I expect you to stop believing their story is the only one that exists. Devin cleared his throat. As much as I enjoy Family Trauma Hour, we might want to circle back to the other thing. What other thing? I asked. The bond, he said. You really don't feel it? I trailed off. What did I feel? My heart stuttered every time Vincent moved closer, like it was trying to sync with something. Devin's presence sparked a different kind of awareness, sharp, bright, edged with amusement that made my skin heat. And Dorian, silent and watchful, radiated a steadiness that my bones wanted to lean into despite themselves. This is just adrenaline, I said. And the curse. And the fact that you 3 are disgustingly pretty in a morally questionable way. Devin grinned. Morally questionable pretty. I'm taking that as a compliment. It is not adrenaline, Dorian said. I've fought alongside bonded pairs. This feels the same. Stronger. Impossible, I said. Humans don't bond. Not often, Vincent said. And never with 3. But rare is not the same as impossible. 3. I repeated. Devin's brows shot up. You really haven't noticed? Noticed what? He moved closer, slow enough not to spook me. I didn't back away. That was its own kind of problem. He stopped just within arm's reach. I could see the faint scar at the corner of his mouth, the smudge of ink on his fingers from old pages. Close your eyes, he said. I'm not closing my eyes with 3 vampires in the room. Coward, he teased. Pragmatist. Shannon, Vincent said softly. I hated how my body responded to that tone. Treacherous thing. I closed my eyes. Breathe, Devin said. Listen. Not with your hunter training. With whatever's under it. I inhaled. The library smelled of dust and leather, wax and old magic. But beneath that, distinct threads. Vincent smelled like storm wind and iron and the faintest trace of something warm, like cedar smoke. My pulse jumped. Dorian was steel and earth and rain-soaked stone, grounding and heavy. Devin was spice and wildflower honey and the sharpness of old paper. The air hummed around all three of them, and somewhere in that hum, something in me thrummed in answer, a tuning fork struck by invisible hands. I exhaled shakily. Feel that? Devin murmured. Yes, I admitted, because the binding curse had already had its fun for one night. That's the bond, he said. Or the beginning of it. I opened my eyes. What does that mean? Vincent studied me like I was some new spell written across the air. It means, he said slowly, that the hunter sent to kill me is bound to me and my brothers by something older and more stubborn than the Order's curses. Dorian's gaze met mine, steady and dark. It means we have a problem. Devin smiled, slow and wicked. Or an opportunity, depending on how you look at it. My stomach dropped. Because the Order had sent me here to kill a monster. And instead, somehow, I'd found the beginning of a claim that would burn my world down. The summit days were a blur of politics and tension. By daylight, or what passed for it in a valley where the sun rarely crested the mountains, human envoys and lesser vampire lords gathered in the high hall, all marble and shadow and stained glass windows depicting battles I only now realized the Order had lied about. They circled each other in conversations thick with false courtesy. At night, the real negotiations began. I moved through it all as a ghost. On paper, I was only a bodyguard, stationed at the envoy's back, eyes scanning for threats. In reality, I was also the Order's knife, waiting for an opening. And something else. Something I didn't have a word for. Vincent watched me from the throne at the head of the hall. Not constantly. That would have been too obvious. But often enough that our gazes kept colliding like sparks. Devin appeared at my shoulder with irritating frequency, offering scandalous commentary on noble politics and stealing the appetizers off servants' trays with a wink. Dorian, more subtle, rearranged guard rotations so our paths crossed in patrol corridors, where we traded curt nods that felt heavier than they should. The bond, the supposed bond, coiled tighter each time. I tried to ignore it. I failed. On the fourth night, after too many hours pretending to be nothing but what the envoy thought I was, I escaped to the Citadel's northern ramparts. Winter wind knifed through my thin shirt. The valley sprawled below, silvered by moonlight, the line of the road a faint scar along its flank. The sky was clear tonight. Stars scattered like broken glass. I braced my hands on the cold stone and let myself breathe. You'll freeze. Vincent's voice came from my left. I've survived worse, I said without turning. Besides, I thought cold didn't bother you. It doesn't, he said. You are not me. Thank the gods. He came to stand beside me, leaving a careful distance between our shoulders. I could feel him anyway. The Order is not pleased, he said. Their envoy looks ready to faint every time I say the word cooperation. Your opening speech didn't help, I said. Mutual survival in an age of technological upheaval is not really the Order's brand. What is their brand, then? Control, I said. Holy war. Righteous violence wrapped in scripture. And you? He asked. What is your brand, Shannon? Sharp edges, I said. Bad decisions. Grudges. And yet you haven't tried to kill me. Yet, I echoed. He leaned on the parapet, hands folded. Do you still intend to? The binding at my throat tingled. Weaker now. Less a choke hold, more a collar grown too loose. Yes, I said. It hurt less than the first confession. If I don't, they'll kill me. And if you succeed, you'll start a war that will kill thousands. He looked at me. You're clever enough to see that. Clever enough, I said, to know there might be a third option. That doesn't mean I can find it. You won't find it alone, he said. I don't think your council will be thrilled about you partnering up with your would-be assassin. They trust my judgment, he said. do they? I asked. Or do they just fear you more than they fear anything else? His jaw tightened. Fear is a useful tool. So is faith, I said. If you know what to do with it. Wind gusted, whipping my hair into my face. Before I could brush it away, Vincent's hand lifted. He hesitated, then tucked a stray strand behind my ear. The touch was careful. Reverent, almost. The bond flared. Images flickered across my mind, not my own. A sense of standing on this same wall centuries ago, watching torchlight wind up the road. The taste of iron on the air. The weight of a crown that was never meant to be worn. I jolted. What was that? I demanded. Memory bleed, he said, voice strained. Another side effect of a forming bond. Make it stop, I snapped. I'm not doing it on purpose. Try harder. He huffed, a sound halfway between a laugh and a growl. You're infuriating. Likewise. We stood in brittle silence for a few beats. You asked me once, he said eventually, why I killed your mother. I told you the simple answer. There's a more complicated one. I'm not sure I want to hear it. Too bad. He kept his gaze fixed on the valley. Long before you were born, the Order approached my court. They offered a deal. We would confine our feeding to agreed-upon territories and provide security in exchange for their help policing rogue vampires and hunters alike. I snorted. That doesn't sound like them. It wasn't. His mouth twisted. It was a faction within them. A group that understood the world was changing. One of them was your mother. The rampart stones swayed under my feet. You're lying, I said. Ask yourself, he said quietly, where she learned enough about my court to infiltrate it nearly to my chambers. How she knew the old wards and how to bypass them. No, I said. No, she hated vampires. She raised me to kill, he finished. Yes. After the deal fell apart. What happened? The inquisitors who opposed the alliance found out, he said. They slaughtered the moderates. Framed my court for it. Your mother survived. They used her grief. Twisted it. Sent her after me with a story tailored to hurt. That's not possible, I whispered. You've believed their stories your whole life, he said. Try disbelieving one for 30 seconds. I bristled. My memories are real, he said. They also began after they were done rewriting her. You've never seen who she was before. My grip on the stone tightened until my knuckles ached. Why are you telling me this? Because you're standing on the same edge she did, he said. And I refuse to watch another hunter fall because of their lies. Don't pretend this is altruism, I said. You care because of the bond. Yes, he said simply. I do. The honesty in it knocked the breath out of me. I don't want this, I said, hating how small the word sounded. Neither did I, he said. Do you think I woke centuries ago and thought, I hope one day my fate will be tangled with that of an Order weapon? Charming. I am many things, he said. Charming is optional. The bond is not. What happens if I fight it? You'll go mad, Dorian said from behind us. I turned. He stood a few paces away, the door to the rampart still swinging shut behind him. I hadn't heard it open. Do you people not believe in knocking? I demanded. It's a wall, he said dryly. There is no door to knock on. Semantics. He came to stand on my other side, bracketing me between them. Their combined presence wrapped around me like a storm front. I've seen it, Dorian said. Bonded pairs turned against each other by politics, war, lies. The magic does not care about your ideals. It only knows you belong. Deny it long enough, and it will chew you apart from the inside. That's horrifying, I said. Truth often is, he replied. I looked between them. Vincent, all contained fire and iron control. Dorian, solid and sharp, a quiet anchor. Somewhere inside, I knew Devin pulsed with his own chaotic gravity. 3 points on a map I'd never wanted drawn. What do you expect from me? I asked. Forgiveness? Surrender? A declaration of undying love after 4 days of simmering tension and attempted murder? Honesty, Vincent said softly. Pragmatism, Dorian added. Adventures, Devin's voice called from the stairwell. Preferably involving fewer wars and more nakedness. Devin, Dorian growled. Fine, fine, Devin said, emerging onto the rampart, hands up. But someone had to lighten the mood before we all drowned in brooding. He joined us at the parapet, bumping his shoulder against mine with deliberate ease. What we actually expect, he said, is that you stop pretending you're not stuck with us and start working with us so we don't all die in increasingly dramatic ways. I sighed. You really know how to make a girl feel treasured. So this is what we know, Devin continued, ticking points off on his fingers. 1. The Order wants Vincent dead. 2. They put a curse in you to make sure you follow orders. 3. The bond is forming between you and all 3 of us, which is both extremely sexy and extremely inconvenient. 4. If the Order finds out, they will use you to get to us. Vincent's expression shuddered. They already are. Then we changed the script, Dorian said. I snorted. You think they'll just let me walk away? No, Vincent said. Which is why the first thing we must do is break their hold on you. Great, I said. You know, no one's managed that in the Order's entire history. That you know of, Devin said. Records written by victors and all that. How? I asked, despite myself. Vincent's gaze went to my throat. The binding is anchored in your blood. Blood magic can be overwritten. By what? I asked warily. By mine, he said. By Dorian's. By Devin's. By the bond. The world tilted. You want me to drink from you, I said slowly. Or you from me. Sharing blood is part of what cements the bond, Dorian said. It will also give us access to the magic tied to you. And then what? I asked. You hack my curse like it's some kind of arcane code? In essence, Vincent said. This is insane, I muttered. Probably, Devin said cheerfully. But it's the fun kind of insane. I looked at the valley. The road. The world that would burn if this summit went south. The Order had taken everything from me. My mother. My childhood. My autonomy. They'd carved their will into my bones and called it righteousness. Now, their favorite weapon was standing on a vampire's wall, considering letting 3 monsters bite her to break their chains. Fine, I said, surprising myself with the word. We try it. But on my conditions. Vincent's brows lifted. You're negotiating with a king, Hunter. I'm negotiating with 3 very desperate men, I corrected. You want my blood? You play by my rules. Devin grinned. I'm aroused. Shut up, Dorian and Vincent said at the same time. What conditions? Vincent asked. First, I said, turning to face them fully. You do this away from your court. Away from my envoy. No one gets leverage they shouldn't have. Agreed, Vincent said. Second, I continued, if this goes wrong and you can't break the curse, you don't use it against me. I'd rather die by my own choice than as some puppet for either side. You have my word, Vincent said. Words are cheap, I said. Swear it. He went very still. Dorian's gaze sharpened. Shannon. You said you wanted honesty, I said. I want something better. I want a promise sealed in whatever magic you trust. For a long moment, I thought Vincent would refuse. Then he nodded, a short, sharp gesture. Very well, he said. I swear, by blood and throne and the line that binds my name to this citadel, that if we cannot free you, I will not use your binding against you. I will not command you through it. I will not allow anyone else to. Nor will I permit you to be turned into a weapon for my enemies. Power rolled off him as he spoke, a low thunder that made the hairs on my arms stand up. The bond thrummed, recognizing the weight of it. I witness, Dorian said. I witness, Devin added, for once completely serious. Something settled in my chest. Not peace. But a shift. A tiny realignment of the world's axis. Third condition, I said. If we succeed, you don't get to own me just because some ancient magic thinks we're cute together. I decide what I am to you. You don't get to decide for me. Vincent's gaze searched mine. I would have it no other way. Speak for yourself, Devin said lightly. I'm very attached to the idea of you as my feral problem. Devin, Dorian warned. What? It's endearing. I shook my head. You're all insane. Yes, Vincent said. And we're your problem now. The terrifying part was how right that felt. The ritual took place in a chamber far beneath the citadel, carved into the mountain's root. Wards etched in silver and obsidian lined the walls, pulsing softly with contained power. A stone platform stood in the center, surrounded by a circle of runes older than most human nations. The air was cold enough to bite, each breath a ghost. Not ominous at all, I muttered. Devin handed me a glass. Here. It's fortified. I eyed the dark, thick liquid warily. Blood? Wine, he said. I thought you might need a drink. I took a swallow. It burned down my throat, spreading heat. Walk me through this again, I said. Slowly. Using small words. Vincent stood at the edge of the circle, coat off, sleeves rolled up. The veins in his forearms stood out faintly, blue tracery under pale skin. The binding curse was woven into your blood using your Inquisitor's true name, he said. That's how he exerts control at a distance. That name is the key. You know it? I asked sharply. Every ruler collects secrets, he said. The Order is arrogant. They think their power makes them untouchable. It makes them sloppy. So you use his name against him, I said. Not directly, Dorian said. That would alert him. We use it to overwrite the lock he placed in you. Think of it as forging a new path for the magic's obedience. From him, Vincent said, to me. I stiffened. So I throw one master off my back just to let another climb on? The difference, he said, stepping closer, is that I've already sworn not to use it as a leash. I want to cut the rope, not change its color. And if your plan doesn't work? I asked. Then nothing changes, he said. The curse remains as it is. You walk out under your own power, just as you walked in. We lose our chance. You remain the Order's. And you still trust me in your citadel? I asked. No, Dorian said bluntly. But we will tolerate you. Devin grinned. I'll do more than tolerate you, sweetheart. I rolled my eyes. Fine. Where do you want me? On the platform, Vincent said. Of course, I muttered. It's always the ominous stone platform. I stepped into the circle. As my foot crossed the line of runes, the air thickened, pressing against my skin like cool water. The platform rose just above the floor, smooth as if it had been polished by centuries of use. Lie down, Vincent said. I did, the stone cold against my back. I stared up at the ceiling, where faint sigils glowed in a pattern I couldn't quite decipher. Devin perched on the edge near my head, one leg dangling. Dorian stood at my feet, hands clasped behind his back like a soldier waiting for orders. Vincent came to stand at my right side. He held out his hand. "May I?" "You keep asking like consent matters," I said softly. "It does," he said. The knot in my chest loosened just a fraction. I placed my hand in his. His fingers closed around mine, cool and strong. "The curse will fight," he said. "This will hurt." "Pain and I are old friends," I said. He squeezed once. "This is not the same." Finally, something we could agree on. He brought my wrist to his lips. "I'm not ready," I blurted. He stilled. "We can stop." I swallowed. "No. Just go. Before I change my mind." His breath was cool against my skin. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then his fangs slid into my flesh. Pain flared, sharp and bright, but it wasn't the worst I'd felt. The curse had hurt more when it was first carved into me. This was cleaner. Focused. Heat followed, a slow pull as he drew blood. The runes around us flared to life, glowing a sickly green for an instant before shifting to deep crimson. My heartbeat roared in my ears. Beneath it, something else stirred. The binding tattoo at my throat woke like a snake prodded with a stick. It writhed, invisible coils tightening. I gasped. Vincent's grip on my hand tightened. I felt him draw deeper, felt the magic of his blood reach for mine through the connection. "Dorian," he said, voice roughened. Dorian stepped into the circle, his hand coming down to rest on my ankle. Cool energy flooded up my leg, steadier than Vincent's storm. "Devin," Vincent ground out. Devin's fingers slipped into my hair, his palm resting against my temple. A different current flowed from him, wild, bright, electric. 3 points of contact. 3 flavors of power. My blood responded like it had been waiting years for this chord. The bond snapped taut. The tattoo at my throat ignited. I screamed as fire ripped through me, tearing along veins and nerves. The world splintered into shards of sensation. Images crashed into me. A dark hall lit by torches, Vincent kneeling in blood, a crown forced onto his head. A battlefield under a red moon, Dorian hauling a wounded comrade to safety while arrows rained down. A library on fire, Devin laughing as he dragged armfuls of books out of the flames, smoke streaking his face. My mother, younger than I remembered, standing in a candlelit chamber, this chamber, arguing with a woman whose eyes glowed with the same starlight as the tapestry witch. "We have to change," my mother said. "The world is changing whether we like it or not." The vision shattered as the curse struck back. Black thorns of magic erupted through my chest, anchoring me to that first inquisitor's name like hooks dug into bone. Vincent's voice cut through the pain. "By the true name of the man who bound you, I call his chain into the light." He spoke the name then, raw, ugly, heavy with power. The thorns recoiled. Dorian's power surged, wrapping around my legs and spine like armor. Devin's followed, weaving web-like patterns through my mind, pressing against the curse's hold. "Shannon," Vincent said. "Look at me." My eyes flew open. His face hovered above mine, blood at the corner of his mouth, eyes blazing gold. "Who do you choose?" he asked. The curse twisted, trying to force one answer. The bonds sang, offering another. Heat rolled through me where his fangs still rested in my skin. My blood burned in 3 directions at once, reaching, resisting, wanting. "Choose," Dorian urged. "Or I'll choose for you," Devin added, lightly, but beneath it a thread of genuine fear. I thought of the Order's tunnels. The screams that bled through walls. The way they'd tattooed their god into my throat and called it salvation. I thought of standing on the rampart between 3 monsters who'd given me more choice in a week than the Order had in 15 years. The curse told me to say one name. I spat another. Mine, I rasped. The magic recoiled, stunned. I choose mine, I said again, voice stronger. My will. My path. And if I have to pick a side between the man who branded me and the monsters who at least ask before they bite, I choose. Vincent's name burned on my tongue. I dragged it into the light anyway. Vincent, I gasped. The curse screamed. The bind at my throat snapped, not cleanly, not gently, but with a tearing sensation like claws ripping out. Energy exploded outward, a shockwave that slammed into the warded walls and bounced back in a cascade of sparks. I arched off the stone. The world went white, then black, then still. Silence. My heart pounded. No foreign heartbeat layered beneath it. No invisible hand on the back of my neck. I lay panting, staring at the ceiling. Slow seconds ticked by. Shannon? Devin's voice was hesitant, as if he wasn't sure which version of me would answer. I swallowed. Still alive. Relief jolted through all three bonds at once. I could feel it. Warmth flooding down each tether. Vincent withdrew his fangs slowly, sealing the punctures with a careful swipe of his tongue. The motion sent another, less painful shiver through me. How do you feel? Dorian asked. Like I got hit by a truck full of exorcists, I said hoarsely. But the screaming in my head is quieter. I reached up, fingers tracing the tattoo at my throat. The ink was still there. The pattern remained. But the oppressive weight behind it was gone. Try, Vincent said quietly. Think of disobeying your inquisitor. I did. Nothing happened. No pain. No choking sense of impending death. Just the memory of years spent kneeling at his feet, and a slow, burgeoning rage. I'm going to kill him, I said softly. Vincent smiled, sharp and vicious. Good. Devin flopped back onto the platform beside me with a groan. Well, that was exhausting. Next time we overthrow an oppressive regime, can we do it with less arterial risk? Dorian's lips twitched. You did nothing but sit and smirk. I provided essential moral support, Devin said. You talked about nakedness, I reminded him. Which improved morale considerably. Despite the ache in every muscle, I laughed. It came out shaky, but it was real. Vincent still cradled my hand. You are free, he said, voice soft enough that it didn't feel like an announcement. The order cannot hold you now. I met his gaze. Do you understand what you've done? I asked. What this means? Yes, he said. I have turned the weapon they sent against me into something they cannot control. A liability, I said. A wild card, Devin corrected. An ally, Dorian said. A woman, Vincent said, who gets to decide for herself. The bond thrummed in agreement. I squeezed his hand once, then let go. I'm still going to kill him, I said, sitting up slowly. The room spun. 3 sets of hands steadied me, Vincent at my back, Dorian at my shoulder, Devin at my knee. I'll help, Vincent said. So will I, Dorian added. Dibs on punching him first, Devin said. You don't even know what he looks like, I said. I'll punch all of them just to be safe. I slid off the platform, legs shaking. They stayed close without crowding, a triangle of presence that felt unnervingly right. I need to figure out my next move, I said. The summit ends in 3 days. The order will expect me to have done my job or be dead. We won't let them take you back, Dorian said. You won't get a choice if they send more hunters, I said. They'll come with holy water cannons and relics so old even you'll flinch. They'll call it justice. Then we give them something else to talk about, Devin said. Like, say, a scandalous human-vampire alliance that upends centuries of doctrine. Or the fact that their star assassin joined the monsters, I said dryly. That too. Vincent watched me, eyes thoughtful. You don't have to decide now, he said. You've had your cage ripped open. It takes time to learn how to stand without the bars. I've been standing this whole time, I said. Then it takes time to learn how to walk, he said. Run. Choose where you go. And if where I go isn't here? I asked. He inclined his head. Then we will still be bound. We will still aid you if you call. The bond is not a leash. It is a bridge. Poetic, I said. Annoying, Devin muttered. He gets like this when he's emotionally compromised. I can hear you, Vincent said. Good. Dorian's hand brushed my shoulder. We should get you some rest. The ritual took much from you. The summit resumes in 3 hours, Vincent said. We cannot show weakness. Speak for yourself, Devin said. I am entirely comfortable showing weakness if it gets me out of listening to Lord Harrow complain about blood tariffs again. I chuckled. You three go play politics. I'll stand behind the envoy and try not to look like I just had my soul surgically removed. Subtlety has never been your strength, Devin said. Neither has discretion, Dorian added. Exactly, I said. They'll just think I'm hungover. Vincent stepped closer, hand hovering near my cheek before he seemed to think better of it. Stay alive, Shannon. You first, I said. The corner of his mouth curved. The summit's final day dawned with a sky the color of bruised steel. Tension crackled in the high hall as envoys took their places, humans in stiff suits and vampires in tailored darkness. Rumors had spread, whispers of the ritual in the depths, of wards flaring in the night. No one knew the details. Everyone sensed something had shifted. Vincent took the throne, a figure carved from storm cloud and bone. Devin lounged to his right, looking bored. Dorian stood at his left, every inch the general. I stood several steps behind the human coalition envoy, back straight, hands clasped in front of me. A bodyguard. A hunter. A woman with 3 bonds thrumming under her skin and no leash at her throat. The envoy cleared his throat, sweat beading at his temple. On behalf of the coalition, he began, voice wobbling, we appreciate His Majesty's hospitality and are willing to consider the terms of the proposed treaty. Consider, Devin mouthed at me with a smirk. I resisted the urge to roll my eyes. Vincent's gaze flicked over the assembled nobles and envoys. We stand at a crossroads, he said, voice carrying easily. The human world advances faster than your orders and councils can contain. Technology erodes the shadows we hid in. The old ways of war will destroy us all. Murmurs. A few nods. The order you serve, he said, looking directly at our envoy, believes power is maintained through fear and secrecy. They send weapons instead of diplomats. They preach extermination instead of adaptation. The envoy paled. We are not the order. We act independently. Do you? Vincent asked softly. Or do you fear them more than you value your own people's lives? The envoy's lips pressed together. I felt the shift in the room before I heard it, the faintest echo of footsteps in the corridors beyond, the hum of magic not woven by vampires. Devin's head tilted. Dorian's hand went to the hilt of his sword. Vincent's eyes narrowed. Shannon, he said without looking at me. I know, I said. The order had arrived. The doors at the far end of the hall slammed open. The High Inquisitor strode in as if he owned the mountain. He wore the long white coat of his office, embroidered with symbols that made my skin crawl. A ring of ancient gold glinted on his finger. His eyes swept the room, passed over Vincent with carefully controlled disdain. Then they found me. Ah, he said. There you are. My lungs froze for a heartbeat. The phantom of old obedience twitched. The newly cut bond at my throat glowed, then settled. No kneeling? He asked, voice carrying enough to be heard by half the room. No bow for your master? I must be behind on the sermons, I said lightly. When did we start worshipping bureaucrats? Laughter rippled dangerously along the vampire side of the hall. The human envoys went very still. Vincent's gaze sharpened. Devin bit back a grin. Dorian's approval pricked like a blade. The Inquisitor's smile never reached his eyes. Shannon, he said. Come here. It was not a request. The old curse would have driven me to my knees. Nothing happened. I stayed where I was. No, I said. The word was small. In the charged silence that followed, it might as well have been an earthquake. The High Inquisitor's smile cracked. I see, he said. The rumors of infernal corruption were true. He turned to Vincent, voice rising. You have taken what belongs to the Order. You have defiled what was pure and twisted her to your side. The Order does not own people, Vincent said, each word laced with steel. And if you speak of corruption, Inquisitor, you might start with the chains you put in your hunter's veins. The Inquisitor's gaze flicked to my throat. He saw the tattoo. Saw something missing from it. You broke it, he snarled. No, I said. You did, when you underestimated what I'd do to be free. Magic surged around his hands, crackling with holy fire. Shannon Reed, by the authority vested in me by the Order, I. Your authority, Vincent said, rising from the throne, has no weight in my court. The hall's wards flared. Power rolled off him, dark and heavy. Devin straightened, hand dropping casually to the dagger at his hip. Dorian drew his sword with a clean, whispering ring. Careful, Inquisitor, Devin said. We bite back. You dare threaten a servant of the divine? The Inquisitor roared. I dare threaten anyone who comes into my home and tries to drag away someone who has claimed sanctuary, Vincent said coldly. I blinked. I what? He didn't look at me. By ancient law, by the blood of my line and the wards carved into this mountain, I named Shannon Reed under my protection. Any harm done to her is harm done to me. The bond hummed in wild agreement. Bold, Devin murmured. Romantic, even. This is madness, the Inquisitor spat. You would start a war over one broken weapon? Yes, Vincent said simply. The honesty of it stunned the hall into silence. The Inquisitor looked between us, calculating. He had to see the way the magic thrummed now, not just vampire power, but something older, strange, woven between us in invisible threads. Very well, he said, voice suddenly smooth. Keep your pet, Vincent. The Order has other weapons. She was a liability the moment she let you touch her. His eyes returned to mine, and now they burned with a different fire. You think you're free? He asked softly. You've only traded masters. Enjoy your cage while it lasts. He turned on his heel. I don't think so, Devin said lightly. He moved faster than I'd seen him move before, a blur of copper and shadow, cutting off the Inquisitor's path. Leaving so soon? Devin asked. But we haven't even done refreshments. The Inquisitor's hand lifted. Light flared, blinding. When it cleared, Devin was slammed against a pillar, holy sigils burning faintly on his shirt where the spell had struck. He grinned anyway. Rude. The court erupted. Vampires surged to their feet. Human envoys shouted. Wards screamed as magic slammed against them from both sides. Enough. Vincent's voice tore through the chaos like a blade. This summit is not the place for your dramatics, Inquisitor. You want a war? You'll have one. But not today. He looked at me then. Shannon. Choice hung between us. I could walk to the Inquisitor, fall to my knees, beg for some twisted version of mercy. I could pretend the ritual hadn't worked, claim enthrallment, play double agent. Or I could step away from 15 years of indoctrination and throw my lot in with monsters whose eyes glowed like dawn over a battlefield and who, against all logic, had carved out room inside their darkness for me. I stepped forward. Not toward the Inquisitor. Toward Vincent. Toward Devin, still laughing in the face of pain. Toward Dorian, sword raised, protective fury written in every line. I felt the hall's gaze like a physical weight. The envoy's shocked horror. The Inquisitor's flare of triumph. That's right, his expression said, prove me right. I stopped beside Vincent. Shannon, the Inquisitor said, voice low and dangerous. Think very carefully about what you are doing. I said. For the first time in my life. You are choosing damnation. I am choosing myself, I said. You wanted a weapon. You trained one. You aimed me at your enemy and told me I was doing the goddess's work. You carved your will into my bones and called it devotion. I lifted my chin. You forgot that weapons can turn. His face twisted. Ungrateful. Grateful, I said, cutting him off. For the skills. For the strength. For the clarity to see you for what you are. A petty man who wraps his hunger for control in holy words. Gasps. Whispers. A few human envoys looked, not outraged. Thoughtful. Blasphemy, he spat. Truth, I said. Vincent's hand brushed the back of mine. Not claiming. Steadying. The order will come for you, the Inquisitor said. For all of you. You cannot hide behind your walls forever. We don't intend to hide, Dorian said quietly. You started this war long ago, Vincent said. When you slaughtered your own moderates. When you sent hunters after those who dared negotiate. This summit was a last attempt at avoiding what's coming. You chose otherwise. The Inquisitor smiled then, thin and vicious. Very well, he said. Let the world burn. We will cleanse it in holy fire and rebuild from the ashes. Not if we set the fire first, Devin muttered. The Inquisitor turned, robes flaring, and stalked out of the hall. The doors slammed behind him. Silence held for a long, brittle moment. Then the high hall erupted into sound, arguing envoys, hissing nobles, the crackle of reactivating wards. Vincent turned to face his court. The summit, he said, is over. Disaster, someone muttered. Opportunity, Devin corrected. Vincent's gaze swept the room. Those who wish to stand with me against what is coming, stay. Those who wish to run back to your masters and whisper in their ears, go. But choose now. There will be no second chances. I watched as lines were drawn in the space of a few heartbeats. Some vampires slipped quietly toward the side doors, faces carefully blank. Others moved closer to the throne. A few human envoys stayed where they were, torn. My former envoy looked at me, betrayal raw on his face. I'm sorry, I said quietly. But I won't die for their lies. You may have doomed us all, he whispered. No, I said. I'm trying to save us. From beside me, Vincent said, we'll discuss terms of a new alliance with those who stay. For now, court is dismissed. Leave us. Slowly, reluctantly, the hall emptied. When the heavy doors finally boomed shut behind the last noble, the sudden quiet rang. You realize, I said, that you just declared war on an organization that has murdered continents for less. Yes, Vincent said. And tied yourself publicly to their ex-weapon. Yes. And bound yourself, emotionally and magically, to the same mess. Yes. You're insane, I said. Yes, Devin said cheerfully. But so are you. It's part of your charm. I turned to face them fully. What now? I asked. Now, Dorian said, sliding his sword back into its sheath, we strategize. We root out the Order spies in our ranks. We prepare our defenses. We spread the truth, Devin added. About what they've done. About the hunters they've broken. We undermine their holy facade. We plan, Vincent said, for a war that will not be fought in mere battles, but in hearts and minds. And me? I asked. Vincent stepped closer, close enough that I could feel the hum of his presence like a second heartbeat. You, he said softly, learn how to be someone other than what they made you. With us, if you choose. Elsewhere, if you don't. But every choice from here on is yours. I stared at him. You're really just letting me go if I want? It will hurt, he said. The bond will ache. We will feel your absence like a missing limb. But I would rather suffer that than cage you. Dorian nodded. A bond built on chains is a sickness. One built on choice is a strength. Devin slung an arm over my shoulders, careful of my reaction. I didn't shove him off. Besides, he said, you'll come back. We're irresistible. I snorted. The truth was, I didn't know what I wanted beyond this. I didn't want to go back. Not to the Order's tunnels. Not to their sermons. Not to their cages. I looked up at the vaulted ceiling, at the stained glass that showed battles I was only now starting to understand. I don't know who I am without them, I admitted. Then we find out, Vincent said. Together. Emotion swelled in my chest, foreign, terrifying, bright. Hope, maybe. Or something like it. I'm still angry at you, I said. I know, he said. You killed my mother. Yes. You let them twist the story. I did not have the power to stop them then, he said. I do now. And I will spend the rest of my too long life making that right, if you let me. The bond hummed. Not an order. A plea. I don't forgive you, I said. Not yet. I would not trust it if you did, he replied. But, I said, I might be willing to see what you do with the chance. A slow smile curved his mouth, real and dangerous and beautiful. That is all I ask, he said. Devin squeezed my shoulder. You know, for someone sent to kill the Vampire King, you've done an excellent job of adopting him instead. I did not agree to be adopted, Vincent said. You absolutely did, Devin countered. It was in the fine print when you bit her. Dorian shook his head, exasperation fond. Children. I looked at the three of them, Storm and Steel and Mischief. Monsters, every one. Kings and killers and keepers of secrets. And mine. Okay, I said, exhaling a breath I felt like I'd been holding for years. We do this. We fight them. We tear their lies apart. We make something better out of the wreckage. Vincent extended his hand. Together, he asked. I took it. Together, I said. The bond flared, a circuit completed, not as a chain but as a circle. Somewhere, deep in the mountain's bones, the wards shifted. Not in alarm, but in recognition. A hunter, a king, and his brothers stood against the dark they'd all been shaped by. The Order had made me a weapon. The vampires made me a choice. And in the end, it wasn't their mark on my throat that defined me. It was the one I chose in return. The end.